At the boardroom meeting, she publicly exposed my failed analysis, stole my promotion, and called my methods dangerous. I sat there as they applauded her lies. I was reassigned, sabotaged, and then she tried to steal my client using my own work, until her slides exposed her live on stage. At the quarterly strategy meeting, I watched in silence as Celeste Harmon, my so-called teammate, strutted across the boardroom with a laser pointer and a viper's grin. She flicked to the next slide like a magician revealing a trick, except the trick was my work, dissected and reassembled to look like failure. "There are some troubling inconsistencies," she said, gesturing to my proprietary market forecast. Angry red circles were drawn around data points, deviations she claimed were financially irresponsible. My jaw clenched, but I didn't flinch. 12 senior execs stared at the screen, then at me. My hands were cold under the table. Celeste's voice took on the syrupy tone of faux concern. "We're talking about millions at stake if we rely on this model. Fortunately, I've already begun revising our projections." I let her finish. Every dig, every error, every slide she'd stolen straight from the files I'd trusted her with. And when Director Lomax finally turned to me and asked if I had anything to add, I said just one thing. "Can you explain why the client demanded that exact approach in their original brief?" The room went dead quiet. If you're hooked already, smash that like button and drop your city in the comments. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted at work? My name is Rhea Donnelly, and for 4 years I was the silent workhorse behind Avalon Strategic's most innovative data projects. I didn't network, I didn't charm, I built, I solved. I won clients with results, not charm. Celeste, she was charm on legs, hired 2 years after me with a gift for boardroom performances and a Rolodex of industry contacts as thick as her ambition. We were never friends exactly, but we were close. Late nights, shared Thai takeout, even drinks after quarterly reviews. She'd watch my models in action like they were magic. I'd explain the code behind my volatility forecasts, and she'd smile like I was a genius. I thought we were allies. Then came the Eldergrove Capital account, Avalon's golden goose. Whoever nailed the analysis would get a corner office and a promotion so massive, it came with its own assistant. The catch? They assigned both of us to it, pitting us head-to-head. I didn't complain. The client, Eldergrove's lead strategist Dr. Zachary Monroe, made their goals clear. "We're done with traditional forecasts. We want edge. We want innovation." I had just the thing, nonlinear modeling I'd spent the last 2 years perfecting. When I showed early models to Monroe, he lit up. Celeste, meanwhile, blinked through the meeting like she'd walked into calculus class without a calculator. Afterward, she suggested a collaboration strategy. "I'll be the face, you be the brains," she said. "They'll love us as a package." I was wary, but I agreed. For 3 months, I sent her updates, graphs, code samples, back-tested results that predicted 89% of market anomalies. Celeste praised my work, said the client was thrilled. I believed her. Until that boardroom ambush. What I didn't know, she'd been erasing my name from everything and feeding half-truths to Director Lomax behind my back. Said I was experimenting with unverified models. That I was risking client trust. She had a plan, and I just walked right into it. But she didn't know I'd brought a copy of Eldergrove's original request with me. And when I slid it across the table, flipping to the page that described the exact methodology I used, the one she'd just spent an hour tearing down, it was her turn to go silent. I watched her face drain of color as the CEO read the document. Dr. Monroe's name stamped right next to the methodology I'd designed. "You said this approach was never requested," I asked, voice calm. I must have misunderstood." "No, you understood perfectly, you just didn't think I'd speak." She tried to backtrack, but it was over. The CEO ordered a meeting with Eldergrove the next morning. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my balcony in Asheville, wondering how I could have been so naive. How many times had she copied my code behind my back, smiled while plotting her betrayal? The next morning's meeting confirmed everything. Dr. Monroe entered, confused and frustrated. "Why did I receive a generic market projection yesterday?" he asked. "Where's the custom model Rhea was working on?" Celeste stammered. "We thought standard methods were safer." "Standard methods are why we left our last provider," Monroe snapped. "Rhea's model was the reason we chose Avalon." The fallout was swift. The promotion went to me. Celeste was quietly moved to internal projects out of sight, but it didn't end there. A week later, I noticed something strange: missing files, corrupted data, emails I never sent. A month after that, Dr. Monroe warned me that Criterion Strategies, our main competitor, had approached them with a proposal shockingly similar to mine. Then I saw it, Celeste's face in a press release. New title, Director of Market Strategy, Criterion Strategies. She'd stolen everything. And now she was trying to steal the client too. She had no idea what I was about to do next. I sat at my desk, rereading the press release for the 10th time. Celeste Harmon, the woman who had once called my models reckless, was now the head of strategic forecasting at Criterion Strategies, the same firm Eldergrove had mentioned as a potential new partner. Her grinning face stared back at me on my screen, alongside a bold headline that made my stomach twist: Criterion taps innovative mind behind next-gen market prediction models. Innovative mind, my models. My years, it wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was identity theft at a corporate level. She hadn't just stabbed me in the back, she was walking around wearing my skin. I forwarded the article to Director Lomax and our legal team with a subject line that simply read, "We have a problem." But Avalon's legal team wasn't in a hurry to solve it. "This will be hard to prove," the legal director told me. "Unless you can show proprietary code or exact replication of deliverables, it's not technically theft." Not technically. My hands clenched into fists beneath the table. "She's using my visuals, my formulas, even my test results altered just enough to look different. But unless they're patented or under copyright," he replied, "you're walking a very fine line." Director Lomax barely looked up. "People change their professional opinions, Rhea. We can't stop her from evolving." No, but I could stop her from lying. That evening, I stared at the invite on my calendar: Annual Financial Forecasting Conference, Asheville Civic Center. Celeste was the keynote speaker. Her topic: Revolutionizing Market Prediction Through Nonlinear Volatility Modeling. My topic. My chest burned. That's when it hit me. If the system wouldn't protect my work, then I had to expose her on a stage she couldn't walk off from. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing, not just data, but witnesses. I called Myra, an analyst from Eldergrove, and casually mentioned Celeste's keynote. "She's giving a talk on nonlinear volatility," Myra asked, surprised. "Isn't that your thing?" "It was," I replied. "Let's just say I'm curious what she'll say." I reached out to Levi Tran, a respected hedge fund manager, and Anton Green, a Wall Street quant legend. Both were attending the conference. I gave them a quiet preview of what Celeste was about to claim. "Watch closely," I told them. "She's not just borrowing ideas, she's stealing my entire identity." Anton laughed, but his eyes narrowed. "If you're right, this'll be one hell of a show." The day before the conference, I did something I never thought I'd do. I planted evidence. Not fake evidence, just visible evidence. I called the venue coordinator, said I wanted to test some slides for another panel. I arrived with a backpack and a plan. When I got access to the AV system, I uploaded a dormant file, one that would stay hidden unless you knew exactly what command to use. The file contained side-by-side comparisons of Celeste's new breakthrough and my original materials, date-stamped, with metadata, including an email from Celeste asking me specific questions about the same methods she now claimed as hers. It was factual, it was time-stamped, it was lethal. On the day of the keynote, I arrived early and took a seat at the back of the massive ballroom. The room filled quickly. Eldergrove had sent their full team. Criterion's investors filled the front row. And then Celeste took the stage. Confident, radiant, dressed like someone who'd already won. "Today," she began, "I'll be sharing a pioneering approach to volatility modeling that my team and I have developed over the last year." I almost choked. Slide after slide, I watched her explain my system. The exact model Eldergrove had paid for. She even used my signature chart design, just changed the color palette. She clicked to her final results slide, touting an 85% anomaly prediction rate. That's when I entered the command sequence from my tablet. The screen glitched, then split. On the left, Celeste's slide. On the right, my original slide from 3 months earlier with the same formulas, same labels, even the same typo in the footnote. Celeste froze. Click, another comparison slide. Click. A time-stamped email from her, asking about predictive clustering theory. something she now claimed as her own idea. The room erupted into whispers. One investor called out, "Is this a technical glitch or something else?" "I'd like to know the same thing," said Dr. Monroe, rising from his seat. Celeste tried to recover, saying it was industry overlap. But Monroe had already walked on stage. "This," he said, pointing to the comparison, "is the exact methodology we commissioned Avalon to develop last quarter. You were in that meeting, Celeste. You dismissed it as garbage." She turned white, then red. Then back to white. I stood up. "You dismissed my work, sabotaged my promotion, and then joined a competitor to sell the same system you publicly tore apart. You didn't build this, you stole it." Cameras were recording. Phones were out. Screenshots flew across social media within minutes. Celeste left through the back exit before the session ended. That evening, Criterion issued a statement saying she had resigned to pursue other opportunities. She hasn't worked in finance since. 2 days after the conference, my inbox exploded. Investors, reporters, industry leaders, they all wanted interviews. Some to understand the model, others just to confirm what they'd seen. A rising star publicly unmasked as a fraud. But what shocked me most wasn't Celeste's fall. It was how far she'd planned to go. A contact from within Criterion reached out anonymously. Their message was brief. Check the timestamps on her internal reports. She'd been prepping this pitch for months, before she even resigned from Avalon. And she used internal logins from your department. Thought you should know. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I requested access logs from Avalon's IT department. I told them it was for a compliance audit, which wasn't a total lie. They sent me a spreadsheet, hundreds of entries, most from my own account. But buried in there were a few from Celeste's old credentials. Dates overlapped with times she'd claimed to be out of office. Even worse, some logins were done from Avalon's server after she'd already accepted the job at Criterion. She hadn't just stolen my work. She'd used company property to do it. She had accessed client IP, a major legal violation. I handed everything to Director Lomax. He stared at the screen for a long time before saying, "We should have caught this sooner." "She was always 2 steps ahead," I said. He nodded slowly. "Not anymore." A week later, Avalon's legal department filed a formal complaint with Criterion and Elder Grove's lawyers. The document included timestamped code, login trails, and the full conference footage. It wasn't just career-ending now. It was criminal. Meanwhile, my own career took off like a rocket. I was named Chief Strategy Architect, the youngest in Avalon's history. Dr. Monroe personally invited me to Elder Grove's quarterly summit, where I presented to a room full of firms who previously wouldn't return my emails. And yet, Celeste still haunted me. Not because she got away with it, she didn't. But because part of me remembered the late nights, the shared laughs, the fake sisterhood. She didn't just steal from me. She made me believe we were on the same side. 3 months later, I got a final text from her. No name. Just a burner number. "They'll forget what happened, people always do, don't get too comfortable." I stared at it, not with fear, but with cold clarity. So I sent one line back, "You're right, they forget failure. But they never forget proof." Then I blocked the number, and moved on. By the 4th month, everything should have been perfect. I had the title, the respect, the dream project teams. Avalon even assigned me a private analyst pod and a technical assistant. My models were now the backbone of 3 major hedge fund partnerships. But even in success, I felt it, that tug in the back of my mind. Like I was being watched. And then the oddities started again. Not sabotage, not at first, just familiarity. I'd read white papers from newly launched firms using language eerily close to mine. I'd attend industry panels and hear echoes of my theories coming from unfamiliar voices. When Westridge Analytics, a boutique firm with big ambitions, unveiled their new proprietary volatility tool, my blood ran cold. Their demo slide, it was a mirror of mine, colors changed, axis titles flipped, but unmistakably my pattern logic. I cross-checked their public patent filing. The language was slightly altered, but some sections were identical. Word for word, and then I saw it. Their lead developer, C. Harmon. But not Celeste. Camden Harmon, her brother, I never even knew she had one. It explained everything. She hadn't just planned to steal my methods for a promotion. She'd outsourced her revenge, planting my work like seeds in the hands of someone who wouldn't be immediately connected to her downfall. And Westridge. They were actively pitching Eldergrove. I didn't panic. This time, I hunted. I pulled every client report from Avalon and compared them to Westridge's demo footage. I highlighted every overlap, every misused term, every signature error she had copied from me years ago, including a rounding discrepancy I'd corrected internally, but never published. Then I made my move. I booked a private lunch with Dr. Monroe. We met at a quiet spot in downtown Asheville, his expression curious. "I've seen Westridge's demo," he said. "Looks like what you showed us last quarter." "That's because it is what I showed you," I replied, "but twisted, reskinned, and given to them by someone who shouldn't have access." I slid a folder across the table, my comparison analysis, the error trail, the Harmon connection. Monroe didn't speak for a while. Then he said, "How far are you willing to take this?" I leaned forward. "As far as she did." 3 weeks later, Eldergrove quietly terminated discussions with Westridge and published a position paper citing data irregularities and intellectual property concerns. I didn't stop there. I forwarded my documentation, every last shred, to a group of industry whistleblowers. Then I leaked a sanitized breakdown to a financial ethics watchdog blog under an anonymous handle. It went viral. New firm accused of recycling proprietary models from disgraced executive scandal. Camden Harmon denied everything, but the math didn't lie. Within days, his company lost their two biggest backers. And Celeste, she finally called. "Real voice, no burner, you don't know when to stop, do you?" "I learned from the best," I said. "You think this is over, it never ends, there's always someone else who wants what you have." "Maybe," I said. "But now, they'll think twice before stealing it." Then I hung up. 6 months later, Avalon promoted me again, this time to Chief Innovation Officer, overseeing all predictive analytics across our national offices. I moved into a corner office overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains. People stopped questioning whether I'd earned my place. They just watched what I built next. But Celeste's name never vanished completely. Her scandal had become industry lore, a cautionary tale whispered in conference rooms and MBA classrooms. Still, I kept my guard up. I knew she wasn't done. Not really. Then one crisp October morning, I received a manila envelope. No return address. Inside, a USB drive, a sticky note with 2 words, "Check logs," and a single printed screenshot. It was from Criterion's internal chat logs. The timestamp was from the night before Celeste resigned. "Harmon, all I need is a flash clone of Ria's visualization layer. I'll tweak the numbers after. No one will notice. Just pull the JSON files from her shared drive." Another name responded. "G. Bramwell, a tech contractor we'd once hired temporarily during a system migration." My stomach twisted. It wasn't just Celeste. She'd help. And not just her brother. Someone inside Avalon had made the initial theft possible. I contacted our security director, and within 48 hours, we confirmed everything. Bramwell had secretly mirrored my development environment months before Celeste left. He'd been paid off in crypto. Quiet, dirty, effective. But the USB, that meant someone wanted me to know. Someone on the inside had turned. That was the final piece I needed. At the next National Financial Tech Conference, Avalon hosted the closing session. I was the final speaker. The lights dimmed. I stepped on stage. But this wasn't a technical presentation. This was a reckoning. I walked through the timeline of our forecasting breakthrough. I detailed how it was nearly derailed by internal betrayal. Then I clicked to a slide titled, "Invisible Hands, How Intellectual Theft Hides in Plain Sight." The room held its breath. I laid out the names, the screenshots, the trails. Every whisper Celeste thought would stay hidden. And finally, her own messages. The ones from the USB. Celeste's network had involved 5 people. Her brother, Bramwell, a contractor at Westridge, and 2 former Avalon interns who now worked at a consultancy in Chicago, peddling my methods as their own. I ended with a simple line: "Innovation isn't just about brilliance, it's about integrity, and theft will always leave fingerprints." The audience rose to their feet. By the end of the week, Bramwell was under federal investigation for data theft. Westridge folded. Celeste's name was formally added to a financial industry blacklist, and Eldergrove renewed Avalon's contract for 5 more years. That Friday, I opened a drawer in my new office. Inside was a single artifact I hadn't touched since the beginning: her old coffee mug. A joke gift from when we still laughed in the break room. Too smart to fail, it said in faded gold lettering. I placed it on the windowsill, not as a trophy, as a warning to myself that even the smartest can fall if they try to steal what they didn't earn. And as for me, I wasn't just a survivor. I was the reason no one dared steal again.